gentlemen, we call the organizational meeting of the Caroline Board of Supervisors to order. Our first item of business will be the election of a chairman, and so I'd open the floor to nominations for chairman.
Mr. Cully, I'd like to nominate Mr. Floyd Thomas, chairman. Second.
We have a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations for chairman? I would recognize that the nominations be closed. And all in favor of Mr. Thomas for chairman for the 2013 Board of Supervisors year, signify by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. And turn this meeting over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cully. Thank you, Mr. Cully. And board members, our next order of business is the election of a vice chairman. Are there any nominations for vice chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Mr. Calvin Taylor as Vice Chairman.
Mr. Akers nominates Mr. Taylor. Is there a second? I'll second. Any other nominations for Vice Chairman? No other nominations. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Give Mr. Taylor and Mr. Seeley a chance to change seats. Board members should have in their packets a copy of the proposed rules. Mr. Underwood, if he doesn't behave, we'll send him back.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, board members do have a copy of the rules for this year in their packet. Any questions regarding the rules? No questions? Motion? Mr. Underwood has a question.
I wrote a note somewhere, Mr. Chairman. Just give me a second.
Sure.
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm fine.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve, we adopt the rules, the bylaws and rules as presented by county staff.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Underwood for the adoption of the rules of order for 2013. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Next order of business would be schedule of our regular board meetings for 2013. And board members, again, have that in their packet.
Mr. Chairman, there is one conflict. The 22nd of January is actually the meeting of the J. Luce Committee for AP Hill is the same evening as our next meeting.
Yeah. Mr. Fincham, do we have any public hearings advertised for the 22nd? I think we do, don't we? And let's see, you wanted to go to that the AP Hill meeting?
Well, I think I should be there.
Yeah, Bowling Green and Port Royal, probably. Is it possible we could send staff? Because we've already advertised for public hearings. Well, we've already advertised for public hearings. What do you want to do? And I'm saying that just because since we're advertised, we're basically committed. But there's another meeting on the 29th, isn't there? There's a series of meetings.
There's a series of meetings, right.
We could certainly have some staff available from the planning department to be able to attend, take notes, and carry any comments that you might have to the meeting.
Is that okay?
All right.
Okay. Now, the one thing I wanted to know is we don't have a second meeting in February, but I think we're going to have a fairly interesting budget session this year. So maybe we ought to use that as a kind of information or work session meeting early, if that works with the rest of the board. So we have February 12th. The next one will be the 26th, if that works. So we'll advertise a regular meeting on the 26th of February. And then as we've done before, I know things come up for board members. If they come up and we've got a couple of weeks' notice, we'll address those as we can. Okay? Motion to adopt the schedule for regular meetings as amended is in order.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Taylor makes the motion. Mr. Seeley makes the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. And we now have our Board of Supervisor appointments. I need some more memory on my computer, which is another story. What's I'm going for? All right. So who do we have first?
No, we're talking about these. It's in the beginning of the first section.
Oh, individual actions. That was who am I missing? Oh, I don't have anything.
Second. Okay.
It's not showing up. Okay, I'll take Mr. Taylor's. We'll share. All right, we have our AAA Social Services, George Washington Regional, Fredericksburg Chamber, Rappahannock River, Regional Alliance, and I'm not sure we're going to do board liaison. So Rappahannock Area for Aging, Mr. Underwood, you were there last year. Would you like to continue or have somebody else serve?
I'll continue.
Okay, Mr. Underwood would like to continue. We'll do all of these and then make just one motion. Social Services Board, Mr. Seeley, you did that last year. Did you do it the year before? You've done it two years? You want to continue or?
I'm good with continuing.
Okay, Mr. Seeley would like to continue. George Washington Regional has been Mr. Taylor and Mr. Black. Mr. Black, would you like to continue? Yes. Mr. Taylor? Okay. Rappahannock Regional Disability Board, County Administrator, he's going to continue. Rappahannock River Basin, that was Mr. Black. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Fredericksburg Chamber and Military, that was Mr. Seeley. You
Yes,
apparently
sir.
are the only one who has military experience.
Well, we're getting ready for BRAC, so I think continuity is going to be important.
Okay, that's fine. I did have a draft card, but that doesn't count. Who? You did? Oh, okay. Rappahannock Regional Disability, that was County Administrator. We're going to have him continue. Rappahannock River Basin Commission, Mr. Black. Would you like to continue? Yep. Fredericksburg Regional Alliance, that was me. Would anyone else like to be the Fredericksburg?
Mr. Thomas, okay.
Mr. Akers? Okay. So we got Mr. Akers. And I think that's it. We're going to wait a little while on the board liaisons just to see if there's another way to do that. So we would take a motion to appoint all of the people stated for the various boards that are there. And that's good enough because we've already said that. So is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Seeley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. That would be the end of the organizational meeting, so we will declare the organizational meeting to be closed and call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors for January 2013. Starting at the end, I'll ask Mr. Black if you will deliver us an invocation, please.
Please stand.
Dear God, we come before you today, thanking you for your blessings, thanking you for all the blessings that we got over the holiday season, and wishing your guidance and knowledge for the upcoming year. The decisions that will be made by this board will be difficult, and they will be tough. We ask for your knowledge, your guidance, and your strength. Through your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now, if you'll join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, opening board comments. Mr. Black.
Mr. Thomas, I just had a
Excuse me one second. I just want to make sure. No amendments to the agenda.
We do have to, we want to remove the minutes.
We're removing the minutes from consent agenda.
That is correct.
Anything else?
I think that was it.
Okay. Motion to accept the agenda with the removal of consent agenda item A.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Okay, motion made by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Akers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Black, thank you. Board comments.
Yeah, I just have a quick brief one. I want to thank VDOT for, they had picked up the trash along 639. It was from Route 1 to Lake Landor. There's another work order to put it in, pick up the trash from Landor to the Spotsylvania County line. It looks a lot better than it previously did, so thank you to them.
That's it. Thank you. Mr. Seeley?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Chairman, just wanted to mention that over the holiday, a longtime member of the community and entrepreneur Clyde Johnson passed, the barber here in Bowling Green, so certainly want to send out condolences to his family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Akers?
I have none.
Mr. Taylor?
I have one. I would just first of all like to wish to all the staff and citizens here a Happy New Year. It's the first time that we've actually met formally since the New Year. So we certainly look forward to working with you, and we wish you the best in the upcoming year. The only other thing that I have is in the town of Port Royal, there is a museum that's located in the building that was the Union Bank and Trust Company building. And obviously they have vacated that building, and the museum has moved there. Mrs. Coleman had contacted me and would like for the board at its convenience to come down and just go through the museum so that she can point out many of the artifacts that are there. I think Mr. Seeley has already been there, but I don't think the other board members have had an opportunity. So what I would like to do is maybe, we don't have to pick a date tonight, but maybe at a regular scheduled meeting, maybe we could meet down there at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a regular scheduled meeting if the board, other board members could get there. Then we could do that tour and then come on to the regular meeting. That way we wouldn't have to schedule another night out at some other time when maybe you don't have something to do. And many of our nights are busy as it is, and so I don't want to really add another meeting, but we have a regular scheduled meeting, let's say on February 12th. If that's okay, maybe we could say we could meet there, maybe at 5, and just do the tour, and then come on for the regular meeting if the board members would agree to that. Anyway, we have some time to think about it, but I just wanted to pass that along. And once we get an official date, I would let Mrs. Coleman know, and then we could go on from there. But that's all I have.
Why don't we let Mr. Culley coordinate dates with the rest of the board members, and we figure out what date works for all of us, and then we could go down there. Mrs. Coleman did the same thing for me and said make sure you stop by and see it, because I imagine it's going to be very nice.
Right.
Okay. That's it, Mr. Dillon?
Yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you. I have three real short ones. One, I wanted to, Major Mosier's here. I wanted to thank the sheriff and Major Mosier. I spoke to the sheriff the Monday after the Sandy Hook event, and he basically was out already monitoring the schools and has done a lot of work there. That came up as a topic today when Mr. Akers and I were meeting with the schools. So we do appreciate the extra effort, understand the extra effort's continuing, and we're going to have to work out some sort of ways between the different departments to make sure that's accounted for. But we do appreciate what you've done, and thanks to all those that service. While I say that, there's one thing that, well, I'll just tell you offline rather than have the whole world know about it. So, all right, but thanks for that. The other one is, board members, this is probably more for my benefit than yours, but our statements of economic interest are due on the 15th. So if I'm reminding you, I'm really reminding myself. And the last one was, The last one was, Caroline was rated, out of all the localities, the towns, cities, and counties in the state, Caroline was one of the few that got an A rating based on our budget availability by a third-party open government firm. They thought the fact that our budget was out there on the website for people to see it easily was a good thing. A few of the localities around us failed. So we're doing fairly well as far as publishing things on the internet to making sure our citizens are aware. And as I said to Mr. Akers today when we were talking to schools, that's one thing we're going to try to do a little bit more. So those are three things I have, and that should conclude our public comments. And we'll move to presentations, which is our next item on the agenda, the proposed 2013 Regional Legislative Program. And I'm pretty sure Mr. James is here for that. Mr. James, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on your re-election as chairman.
Thank you.
Vice Chairman Taylor, congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, gentlemen. It's good to be with you again. As we do each year, we have a little discussion about what are the regional legislative priorities for this planning district and Planning District 9 to our west. We've worked cooperatively now since, well, Mr. Akers, what, 1996? I think you were part of the group that brought the two planning districts together. I'm trying to remember the supervisor, long retired from Fauquier County, who worked with you, and I think you were two of the ones that kind of brought the two groups together. And we've worked cooperatively since then. What I'm going to do, for the sake of time, I'm just going to let you know where we have any real changes. This is pretty similar to the positions we took last year. And we're at the midway point of the biennium, and we're just making adjustments to the state budget, so we're kind of in that short session cycle, so we tend to work with our platform kind of on a two-year basis as well. The number one priority, of course, is the repeal of what some of us refer to as the clawback, where here's your state aid to help you do things like fund your schools and your Comprehensive Services Act and whatever else, your sheriff's office, but we want some of it back after we send you the money. Fortunately, the governor recognized it as a priority, and his budget that he's put forward to the Assembly does get rid of that, so we applaud him for that, and we'll be working with the money committees in hopes that that will stay as the priority. Comprehensive Services Act, our position is as it has been, which is as the state continues to work to save cost, it is not just a state savings that ends up being a local increase, because that does the taxpayer no good. If the state is making policy changes to save money, it should save money for both funders. The next issue would be transportation, and as many of you have probably seen, the governor has released his package late this afternoon, I think about 3:30 or 4 o'clock, so I've had a chance to scan it quickly. Our priority has been that we've made progress. There have been some good investments over the last couple of years, but we're still taking too much money out of the capital improvement side to fund the maintenance and operations side. And what the governor has proposed is attempted to try to plug that hole, about $500 million of new money. And he's made the proposal to eliminate the current gas tax completely, to place a sales tax on gasoline, because gasoline has been, and motor fuels have been exempt from the 5% sales tax, would impose that, increase the sales tax for all goods that are taxed, so that doesn't include food, by 8.8 cents. So the sales tax on everything would go up from 5 to 5.8, and that would include motor fuels, but the 17-cent dedicated gas tax would go away in an attempt to really kind of make it revenue neutral for taxpayers to a large extent. What it does do is it solves a major problem that we've had, where we've had a fixed gas tax since 1986 that has meant, as inflation has occurred, the buying power of that money in 1986 dollars has decreased by 44%. By tacking it to the sales tax, we solve that problem going forward. So it puts it on the same footing with other commodities that people buy that they pay the sales tax on. There are other elements to it. People that drive hybrid cars like me will get a fee, and since we use so much less fuel, that's fine. I use the roads, and I should pay my share too. There will also be adjustment to pick up natural gas, because they're, as the state is doing, they're going to be moving to converting their fleet to natural gas because it's more fuel efficient, more environmentally friendly. So there'll be other changes such as that. We haven't seen the legislation. We've just seen the press releases. So stay tuned. There's more to come. I've already had a conversation with the Commissioner of Revenue. How is that money going to be accounted for? Point of sale, which has been a problem. You know, is that problem going to get solved? Because we do move from the retail to, from the wholesale to the retail. So there may be the opportunity to solve one of the problems we've had in the past that's been a problem for Caroline County. More to come on that. On the Chesapeake Bay restoration, really it's the same position that we've had for the last couple of years, which is let's keep focused on biggest bang for the buck. If we're going to spend money to clean up, let's make sure we're getting the results, and let's start with the most cost-efficient solutions first, and then work our ways down the list where we can create market-based solutions. We want to try to develop those approaches, and that's where things such as the nutrient trading law that was passed last year, and as that gets implemented, will offer us opportunities for those types of solutions. Finally, alternative on-site septic. As you know, over the last half a dozen to 10 years, local authority has been pretty much stripped away to deal with that issue. It's gotten to the point where we have some problems, and it's time to make sure we have the adequate enforcement in place at the state level. We're working with some members of the Assembly. There will be a piece of legislation that Delegate Lingamfelter, who represents part of Fauquier County and Prince William, to the state indemnification fund will be expanded to include betterment loans if the legislation were passed. So if you are low or moderate income and you have an alternative system and it fails, the state would have a program in place where they can make low-interest loans available. And these would be households that couldn't otherwise go into the private market. There's not a big a pool of people that are in that category, but folks who find themselves in that category have no solution to their problem. So this is an attempt to really address an area that had been identified as a need. And we thank Delegate Lingamfelter. He's been working with folks from the region on designing that legislation, and it has been introduced. Matter of fact, I was able to meet with him today. There will be a small budget amendment that will go along to support the development of the program. Mr. Chairman, that is pretty much it. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. James, for your presentation. Before we go to full questions, just one point of clarification. The alternative on-site septic systems is actually what we have in Dawn?
Correct.
Okay, so that's the only place in the county that there's a widespread use of those. There may be individual people?
There are individual ones in other places of the county. It is the only county-run system, alternative system.
Okay. So if this legislation passes,
private
homeowners would be directly responsible through Department of Health, or
the betterment loan, we'll call it the betterment loan legislation, is intended to provide a vehicle through the health department whereby a portion of the fee that the health department collects when somebody goes and applies for their permit. So if, let's say, I wanted to put an alternative system at my home, I pay a fee to the state to review my permit. A portion of that would be set aside, and that would be available for low-income households who, if their alternative system fails, they have no other, they don't have the ability to access private market financing, which has been identified as one problem area. It is, again, it is not a big sample size, but where it exists, there really is no solution, and the health department is sometimes put in the position where they almost have to look and they don't want to force somebody out of their home.
That's, if your septic system doesn't work, that's the alternative they
Exactly.
usually tell us.
And so this is to kind of plug a hole that exists policy-wise so that somebody in that position can get a state supported low-interest loan, which would then mean they would have to pay it back.
Right.
But their home goes from a home that they could never sell to a home they could sell at some point in the future because you now have a working septic system.
Right.
And so it took about 6 months over the summer working with a large stakeholder group. Delegate Linghamfelter pulled a group together to try to design this solution. And it's just dealing with one small problem. It really doesn't address a community such as Dawn unless you had an individual who had their own system.
Right.
And they were low income and it failed.
Okay. And it's only going to be available, this legislation will only be available to low income.
Correct.
Okay, folks that have the problem. Okay, I just want to make sure I understood. Mr. Black, you have any questions?
None at this time.
Mr. Seeley, you have any questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't at this time.
Mr. Underwood?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Akers?
I know when we met at the VACO conference, I certainly insisted that we have some totaling information.
You're right, and because I was explaining the governor's package, I forgot to mention that part of our regional platform includes that if the state is going to consider tolling of an existing facility where the toll funds would be used for maintenance, which heretofore has never been the case, that's going to require General Assembly approval before that happens. It can't just be done by the governor and the CTB. And that's part of our platform as well. Thank you, Mr. Akers. I forgot to mention.
And as far as you know, there's been no hesitation or feedback from the other localities that are in our region now?
In looking at the press release from the governor, there's nothing that addresses that in that package, but I wouldn't necessarily expect the governor to embrace that particular policy position, although there are members of the Assembly who are very sympathetic to that policy position. We'll be working that one.
Before I go to Mr. Taylor, Mr. Seeley, Mr. Black, myself, and Mr. Cully were at a regional meeting in Tappahannock last week. And I believe, if I'm wrong, correct me, Mr. Seeley, but our state senator, Senator McDougal, pretty much said the opposite. Now, I haven't seen the governor's press release, but is that your understanding, Mr. Seeley?
My understanding, according to Senator McDougal, that if the governor could today actually impose put tolls on the roads without any General Assembly legislation.
With federal approval.
Right, which he has for one road right now.
That's correct.
And the one road is 95.
And the policy position is that the Assembly would step in to say, no, if you want to do that, you've got to come to us for approval.
That's what we're pushing for.
Okay.
Right,
That's
but
what
that's
we're asking for.
right. And what the only thing that I wanted to bring up was that Senator McDougal said just the opposite. So, you know, this is where VACO and possibly our representatives have two different perspectives.
So what you're saying is Senator McDougal is saying he does not want the General Assembly to have to give approval for the governor to do this.
No, he's saying that he believes that the governor can do it without General Assembly approval.
And
Well, there's no
the
question. There's no question. We understand that now. We
That is
understand
correct.
that. But what we're
And-
asking is that the General Assembly pass legislation in this General Assembly
In the short
that
session
says-
to make sure that doesn't happen.
says
Correct.
the governor has to come to the General Assembly before he can impose tolling.
But only in a very specific circumstance.
Absolutely.
If it's an
No, absolutely.
existing
Existing road.
not talking about new roads,
Right.
And we're not talking about to pay back the capital debt. We're talking about existing roads and for maintenance, which would be a dramatic policy shift from where Virginia has been historically. And I agree with Senator McDougal. The governor can actually do that on 95 today, and that's the process that they're working through. And hence why many localities have said, wait a minute, we'd like to have our members of the General Assembly debate that before that were to happen.
And that's the reason we were insisting that
Exactly.
this be put into the legislative package, is the fact that hopefully we can get members of our General Assembly to embrace and support the change to the current law, if you will.
And that's exactly what I just want to point out, that difference to say why we have to have this, because our delegate believes just the, we could be in the opposite position. Okay, Ms. Taylor?
That's right.
I just have one, and we talked a little bit about the alternative systems. And I don't know if this applies, I don't really have a clear understanding of whether this applies to everybody who has a system, or whether we just we talk about low-income people. But I know there are lots of areas throughout the county where a regular septic system will not work. The land does not perk. And so people are having to use alternative systems in order to build. And it's not just in Dawn, it's county-wide. I guess my question is, are there any funds available when persons are trying to build, and that property will not perk, and the only way they can build is to use an alternative system? Those funds are not available for that situation.
No, with the bill I was referring to that Delegate Lingamfelter has introduced was really aimed at a very specific circumstance, where you have a low-income household who maybe has a system because they've inherited it, or it's an older alternative system that was built at a different time that has failed, and they don't have the financial resources to be able to go into the private market and get financing. Because that really was identified by the group as a box that somebody couldn't get out of. And the health department really had no means to help them, save condemn their house and put them on the street. And that's not an acceptable solution either. So in terms of somebody who can go into the private market, that's really their vehicle.
I just wanted a little clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. James, well, let me ask one. Mr. Fincham, do we have a list of alternative systems? Is that part of our planning database or anything? So
The health department
the state health department has it,
and
there's no county. Yeah, I was just trying to figure if there was any county thing. Okay.
And they are in the process of getting all of the systems statewide into their electronic database. They're only partway through that process, so I don't know what percentage of ones that you have in the county are actually in and available in their database.
Yeah, how do we have an idea of how to manage that other than we have to go to state health department to say, give us a copy of your database?
You can ask for a list of who they have in the system.
Okay, and it was just a proactive thought, because when it fails, they're going to call one of us before they call the health department?
And that's part of the problem. You go back 5, 6, 7 years ago, and localities were able to manage that.
Right.
And the Assembly pretty much has stripped that authority away and vested it with the health department. And the health department is really still in the process of getting tooled up to fully operate that program.
Okay. All right, Mr. James, thank you very much for that, and I imagine you're not going to go far since you're next on the agenda also.
That's correct.
So we'll move to the next agenda item, which is an update on Phase 2 of the Dawn wastewater project. Again, Mr. James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate you putting me together, and so I can get my work done with you and get on back to be ready for tomorrow when the General Assembly convenes and we find out what they're going to do to us. I will be back in front of you at your January 22nd meeting, asking you to award the contract to the low bidder. The low bidder, we had 9 bids. The low bidder was Franklin Mechanical with a bid for the full project of just over $651,000. Herb White, the county's engineer on the project, will be with me to answer any questions that you may have of him. This bid was certainly a responsive bid, but it was over the available funds. Matter of fact, to the tune of just shy of $120,000. The project team has met a couple of times, working with the engineer, working with staff, and we've identified an item in the bid that we can remove that really has no impact on the number of people served, that would save about $30,000. So that closes the gap down to just above $88,000. We have really taken a pretty aggressive approach to approach all identifiable funders that might be out there. We went back to the state to see if they had any additional funds. They did not. We made an appeal to SERCAP, which had put $100,000 into Phase 1 and had committed $10,000 to Phase 2, and they have since committed an additional $10,000. We approached Mary Washington Hospital Foundation, and they have awarded a grant to the Dawn Progressive Association to support the project because they're a 501c3 nonprofit. It couldn't come to the county, of $5,000. We've identified a number of other small foundations and private grantors such as that. We are working with the Dawn Progressive Association. Their board met and voted and authorized us to work with them to file these grant applications so the funds would come through them, but they voted those funds 100%. Whatever we go out and get will come back to the project. And we're really working to close that gap. We've closed the gap from $118,000 down to $73,000. What that means is if we're not able to get any more by 2 weeks from now, and we may not, because these are private foundations that we have to go after. We got a process to go through, and we got to meet with them and convince them that we're great folks and we're doing great work and they want to be part of our great work. And usually that goes fairly well, but it takes a little bit of time. But what we would probably be asking you to do in 2 weeks is to award a reduced project. Given the numbers of where we are, it looked like at one point we were going to have to, if we hadn't started going after other funds and making some adjustments, we were going to have to eliminate, go from 29 down to 21 homes being connected. We've patched together enough now that it looks like we're at about 23 or 24 of those 29. We're going to keep working that. The project period is about 6 months. What we'll probably be asking you to do in 2 weeks is award a slightly scaled back project, but with the understanding we're hoping we're going to be back to you, hey, we've been awarded this, we've been awarded this, we've been awarded this. We want to do a change order and add homes back in. So our goal is to serve all 29. We're not quite there yet. We were knocked down to 21. We're back to either 22 or 23. 23 or 24. And we're hoping to close the gap those other 4 or 5 homes. I don't think we'll be quite there, Mr. Underwood, in 2 weeks from now, but everybody knows what they have to do, and folks are out doing it. And we're real pleased with SERCAP, and they're stepping up. We're real pleased with the Mary Washington Hospital Foundation. Folks, you probably know Xavier Richardson. We met with him and did the paperwork, and they were able to award us $5,000. And like I say, we've identified a bunch of other groups that we are talking to, and we've got to schedule some face-to-face time with them. Mr. Chairman, I won't trespass any more on your time. That's the report. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. We just wanted you to know ahead of time this kind of crazy balloon we're trying to make work.
Thank you, Mr. James. Probably speaking for the board's internal feelings, I think they felt that this was the amount of money we could afford and couldn't afford anymore, so I appreciate you going for extra funding sources, and that works out great. Any questions? Mr. Underwood, start with you.
Just want to reiterate to Mr. James that my feeling about service to those 29 folks, that's what we said we were going to do, make it work, and we need to make it work. And I can't support it unless we get those 29 folks taken care of.
And Mr. Underwood, we heard you loud and clear. We also heard Mr. Underwood challenged us at a previous Dawn project team meeting. He said, the board doesn't have any more money to put into this project, but you have to find a way to serve 29 homes. And we all took some aspirin and plotted our strategies, and we've been out beating the bushes, and we're going to keep beating the bushes. I don't know that we're going to have that gap closed by 2 weeks from now, but we've still got 6 months of project.
Correct.
And we can amend it because we're going to be working that line, and it's the end of the line. So it's just running it that much farther. We're going to, everybody knows what our marching orders are, Mr. Underwood.
You said that CERCAT pledged an additional 10,000?
They initially, a year
Initially
ago,
gave us 10.
yes, they've doubled their commitment.
So that leaves us, what, 60 plus thousand?
No, if you do the math, we're about
Right.
73,000 short. We were just shy of 120. We've not quite cut that in half, but we're still working at it, as you know.
Okay. So the steps you've taken are you've removed some spare pumps. That was like 30 grand. You saved some money there. And basically the last issue is the 2,000 feet of pipe.
Right.
That's got to be, and that's, like you said, at the end of the line. I'm just repeating it to make sure we all understand.
Right.
At the end of the line, so as money becomes available, you can just add length at the end of the line.
And that's the approach that we're taking, and the engineer designed the project with that concept in mind.
Okay.
And the general contractor understands what we're doing.
Okay. Perfect. Mr. Black, you have any questions? Ms. Tilly? Mr. Akers? Mr. Taylor? All right, Mr. James, thank you very much for your time and your efforts on the county's behalf. We appreciate it, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. James.
And now our last, I don't know how this worked out, but ladies are supposed to go first. But Mrs. Carter, if you will give us an update from the Commissioner of Revenue regarding important dates.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize for my flu cold voice. But after that, please stay in tune with the governor's plan. Point of sale means a great deal to this locality. That could bring us much needed revenue. So stay very close to that, and let's see how that comes down. Before, all taxes were paid at the distributor's level, and it was always very confusing what was there and what is not there. If point of sale is Caroline, our 1% should be coming to the county. So we want to pay close attention to that. We've started off our filing season. It's going very rapidly. Lots of visitors to the office. We're still finding that a lot of people have not connected with the high mileage reduction. So we hope you're putting that out as much as possible. We'll have it in the progress running for 2 weeks. But they do need to have that completed by February 1 in order to receive that reduced assessment. After February 1, they will not get it. The books are done. You need a solid figure to base your budget on. And so after that, they will not receive it. Staff has worked very hard in my office, and I'm very proud of them to be ready completely for proration. This has been quite a learning process, and they've done an excellent job. Some people, I'm sure, well, the first thing they're going to do when they get that new bill is to ring your phones. So be prepared. I'm afraid as much as we've put this out there, a lot of people are still not understanding what's coming down. Of course, our filing forms must be in by February 1. Starting in the month of February, we will also have our elderly and handicapped relief program. My office does travel to churches, to homes, wherever we're needed. Please let us know. We'll be glad to attend any meeting that you have to get the word out. This is extremely important to this county. We still have residents that need to be in this program. And it's not easy getting the word out to those that need it. We also have some issues with our elderly community. They don't want to ask for relief. This is not a relief. This is what the Board of Supervisors has judged to be the taxes they should pay.